everybody, welcome to the first ever episode of Never Explain, the science comedy panel show that goes where other science comedy panel shows daren't go, i.e. to their lawyers to find out what they've just said is libel or not, and to the dictionary of swear words, Urban Dictionary, to find more things to say. This is the first ever game of Never Explain where these points will count. These points will be recorded forever. This will go down as Why Not a Doc versus a large museum that has some science in it who we cannot name. And we'll keep track of everything. And over the next, it could be up to 20 years if I never get a proper job, I will be compiling a league table of every science organization I can find. And because it's online, I can do it around the world now. One of you has got to take on the Smithsonian Air and Space Division in a couple of years. That'll be quite nice. I am going to, before we do anything, let you know the rules of Never Explain, and then I'm going to get our wonderful teams to introduce themselves. The rules of Never Explain are this. I will ask our two wonderful teams a number of questions. When they answer the questions and they say something that makes me laugh or would make me laugh, if I had what you humans call a soul, you'll hear this noise. That bell is a point. And keeping track of all of these points, because I'm very bell heavy, is Jones the Scores. Hello, Jones. How are you?
Hello. Well, we have already covered that I'm broadly fine.
Broadly fine. And you'll be keeping scores in English or Welsh today?
Well, the numbers are the same. I mean, the shape.
Roman numerals used in both countries. I just thought because the Romans didn't get that far into Wales, Wales might have its own numerals.
Words-wise, yes.
We don't use Roman numerals, do we? We use Arabic numerals. How did no one correct me on that? That's ridiculous. Brilliant. Okay, right. You keep score. And so I'll be coming to Jones at various points throughout the game to get the score.
You guys don't all use Roman numerals?
No.
Shit.
Also, isn't BP a number in Roman numerals?
If it is,
you can think about that till the end of the show and work it out. So I'm going to get our two wonderful teams to introduce themselves before I do anything else. So I'm just doing my checklist. Jones, numbers. That's it. That's all I have to sort out. I'll get our two wonderful teams to introduce themselves. First of all, can I get Hana Ayoob, the captain of Team Why Are You Not a Doctor Yet? Can you introduce us? Tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about your science and comedy credentials.
I'm glad someone's finally noticed who's actually in charge of the podcast. So I'm Hannah. I spent years working on some of the biggest science events in the country, which eventually drove me into comedy, which turned out to be a gateway drug for the podcast and going freelance. I now do so many different things that I tend to forget half of them every time I introduce myself. And as far as my science credentials go, I have a degree in natural sciences and business studies.
Uh-oh.
I know.
I was starting anew, but the O has been taken away.
From a very evil university.
Did the business studies include marketing and like how to sell your event tomorrow and things like that?
It did, yeah.
So you concentrate more on the natural sciences side,
yeah.
Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, can I get, from all of you at home, can I get a huge round of applause, even though she won't hear it, for Hana Ayoob? There we go. Right, let's get the second player, the lower player on Team Why Aren't You a Doctor Yet to introduce themselves. Alex, can you tell us a bit about you and who you are and what your science and comedy credentials are?
All right, so my name is Dr. Alex Lathbridge. Yeah.
Oh,
I know, right? I'm just going to drop that
out. The podcast is a lie. The podcast, that's why Hannah's in charge of it.
Yep.
Because it's still true for her.
And Sahel.
He's the wrong sort of doctor.
Wow. Okay. Well, I am a biochemist.
Team on team fire early in the game.
It's fine.
Come to the red zone.
It's fine because, biochemist, I'm creator and co-host of Why Aren't You a Doctor Yet? And, well, my partner...
Co in large letters, host in small letters. Well, brilliant. Can I have a big round of applause for Alex Lathbridge, please? And up against Team Why Aren't You a Doctor Yet? One of us is not the right kind of doctor. Is some people who work for a museum which has some science in whose name we're not allowed to use. And there's two people in this team, so I'm going to get Ted to introduce themselves first. Ted, can you tell us all a bit about who you are and your science and comedy credentials? Go.
I absolutely can. Hello, my name is Ted. I'm 5'10" because apparently that matters.
What are you?
Yeah. Yeah,
numbers work differently than I remember.
Yeah, 5'9.5", and I'm a comedian, and I also work at a museum which has some science in. I do an unspecified job, at that museum, and I get paid an unspecified small amount of money for doing that job. I have not won awards in either of those two fields, but I am very good at them.
Friends, if you want to know what Ted gets paid, just Google terrible pay at Museum with Science. And
that is my email address.
Campaign to get Ted paid more. Brilliant. Right, let's move on from Ted. Can we have a round of applause for Ted, please? Very good. And finally, also on Ted's team, the equal co-leader captain of Team Museum with some science in it, Kate. Can you tell us, Kate, who you are and what your science and comedy credentials are?
Yes, my name is Catherine Taylor Hunter the First, but you can just call me Kate, don't worry there. I'm a proud Australian, which is why, of course, I have travelled about 17,000 kilometres to the other side of the world to live somewhere entirely different. I tell you what that is in miles, but I refuse to convert it until they give me a British passport. So I have never worked in a lab or anything like that, but I did come first in year 11 biology. Shout out to Mr. Love. And I've, of course, been working in science communication for about 10 years now. Ooh. At many museums around the world, including...
you need to get into something profitable, Kate.
One
like any of these people, sure. I mean, look at Ted's background. That's how much money you make in science communication. He doesn't even have someone he can pay to tidy his bed for him.
Exactly that. That's where I met Ted. But, you know, some good things.
The bed? No, the science communication.
No, unfortunately, the science communication field. But some good things have come out of working there as well.
Amazing. Brilliant. Right, big round of applause for Kate, please. Now, we've met Jones already. So the way the game is going to go is there will be looking at my things 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 rounds, depending on time. In each round, I'm going to ask each contestant questions. They're going to tell us their answers. So first, our first question is the following. Colston is in the river. Let's have a moment of pausing. Unfortunately, they then got him out of the river again, but they didn't clean him and they have just dumped him in the back of the third best museum in Bristol. So I want to ask all of you, with your science and comedy credentials, what statue of a dead person from the science, technology, engineering or medicine, that's STEM to those of you in the field, what dead person from the STEM world, their statue, not them, like not an actual dead person, what statue of a dead person from the STEM world would you like pulled down and why? And I'm going to go to BP Zone Ted Hill for the first answer here. Ted, who do you want to see in the drink?
Well, I would say if we're gonna have to tear down a statue, I think that statue should be of me, because I would love a statue to have been built of me in the first place. I don't know what I would do to warrant a statue being built of me. Perhaps just being really keen, really good at networking. Best networker statue. I might have that one put up for me. But what I will do is I will build my statue so it's so strong that it actually can't be torn down. When all the other statues get torn down, it will be just me left over. And when in thousands of years archaeologists find our civilization, they will think that I was in charge. Because at present, there are more than 2,000 statues in London, and less than 5% of them are of me. In fact, a lot less than 5%, no percent of them are of me. And that is something that I want to change. You can tear it down if you want, but please build a statue of me. I need attention.
Fantastic. Big round of applause for Ted Hill, please. Now, Sarah, if you could just cross all of those points out for Ted for not actually doing the subject of the question. He wanted to build a statue, which is the opposite of tearing one down, of somebody in the STEM world. Ted isn't in the STEM world.
Yes, I am.
You're in your bedroom, mate. That is...
The S stands for science communication.
Also, the question has the word, what statue of a dead person? And you chose a live person. You chose to build it.
I'm dead on the inside.
We're all dead on the inside, Ted, but legally that doesn't matter. You don't get
those points on the record.
Just all of them gone. Nothing for Ted.
No, don't do that, Sarah. Leave them on. Leave them on.
Like I sent you the questions 2 weeks ago. You had time. You just got to do the questions.
I didn't look at them until an hour ago, and I couldn't think of anyone.
Let's see who's better at research.
Fascist.
I'm going to take a gamble about who's better at research than Ted, and I'm going to go to Hana. Hana Ayoob from team Why is Alex a Doctor? somehow yet. Who statue with a dead person in STEM should be pulled down and why? Go.
I'm going to go with Florence Nightingale. So she might have been part of kickstarting evidence-based medicine and proving that poor sanitation can make people die. But as recent events have shown, people don't really care about evidence-based medicine or sanitation, even in the face of death. She also had some really creepy attitudes to gender roles. She thought that nurses and doctors should have a relationship like husbands and wives, which I'm not entirely sure whether it makes it more creepy that she thinks that nurses should also be celibate throughout their entire careers. She had issues with female doctors. She claimed that they only succeeded at being third-rate men. And our feminist icon, who really didn't like women, really didn't like non-white women. She claimed that Aboriginal women were altogether unlovable, along with much worse that I am not going to mention. And what is more laughable is that people keep claiming she's anti-racist, not even just of her time. For the record, anti-racists don't crow about the possible extinction of other races who aren't civilized men.
A big round of applause for Hana, Ayoob, please. That is what you call research.
That's actually what I was going to say. But I sensed Hana was going to say that, so I panicked. But that was I agree with all of that, and I should get the points for that as well, please.
Ted,
Ted, you're just getting terrible joke drum noise now all the time. That was an amazing answer from Hana. Big round of applause for Hana, please. Thank you, everybody at home. Now, let's go over and see whether Catherine Taylor Hunter the First, aka Kate Hunter, can rescue her team from weirdly the only thing that Ted has thrown into a river so far is his own team's chances of winning the game. So can I have a big round of applause, please, for her first ever Never Explain answer? It's Kate Hunter.
Brilliant. So one thing off the back of Ted's answer, it would be great if we build the statue of him, and you said it had to be somebody who's no longer living. Does that mean we can also get rid of Ted that way? Just casually suggesting.
Don't give her points for that.
Stop losing all of our points. Anyway, I was going to go with Margaret Thatcher, famously Prime Minister, but also was a scientist. And I know a lot of you are thinking...
That's 12 points, Sarah, just for the mention of dragging down the statue of Thatcher.
Now, regardless of how you view her politically, whether you sit on the right, whether you sit on the left, either way, as a scientist, her big contribution was adding air to ice cream. She made ice cream less substantial. So I really think if there's any reason to chuck her in, well, there's plenty of reasons to chuck her in the river, but that alone should do it. But the one thing I was a little concerned about with all of this is it got me thinking about how the marine life community is going to be responding to all of this. And I'm just wondering if they're going to be inspired by us and we're going to find statues washing up of racist starfish anytime soon. Which might explain what happened in Copenhagen a few weeks, I think it was last week. They took down the statue of or they wrote across the statue of the mermaid, racist fish. And I think that was actually the fish behind that. So there we go.
Accusing the Little Mermaid of being a racist fish. That is absolutely, what a great answer. Ted, I'm so glad that you got Kate on your team. I think she's probably dragged you back into the running.
Well, allow me to ruin that when I say what.
No, Ted.
What river are we going to throw her into? Could we throw her into the river Wye? Because then she'd be Thatcher in the Wye.
Let.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just let Kate win the game for you, Ted. Shut your mouth. That was an amazing answer. And just a quick note for anybody who's read, even our own Prime Minister starting to be like, well, I don't think we should tear down the statue of Churchill. I don't think we should tear down the statue of Churchill. Nobody's really that interested in tearing down the statue of Churchill. We do want the Thatcher statue down. We want it down. We want it in the Thames. We then want the Thames filled with hydrochloric acid. And then we'll have the Churchill statue down as well, just to make sure. We'll have the lot. Right, let's go over to the one person who we have not heard from in this round. He is He's the backup. He's the towel boy. He's on the subs bench for team Why Aren't You a Doctor Yet? It's very much the Ted Hill of his team. Would you please answer me this wonderful question? Colston's in the River. What statue of a dead person from the STEM world would you like to get rid of and why? Please, a big round of applause for Alex Lathbridge.
All right. So my answer is Carl Linnaeus. All right. So this is the guy that's famous for the binomial naming system, something that he actually stole from Swiss botanist Gaspar Bouart, which is like terrible, right? It's you don't steal from the Swiss. Stealing from the Swiss is worse than, like, I don't know, Ted stealing from a woman of color. Now,
which I've not done.
He's responsible for the fact that humans are called Homo sapiens, and that's fine. But then he decided to like subcategorize them into like African and Asian. He called Africans lazy and Asians greedy. Now, this is a system that's so wank, like it's ridiculously wank because it's ruined science forever. Eugenics aside, like paleontologists right now have to say Tyrannosaurus Rex, you know, which is bullshit because what we really want is, oh yeah, so we found the bones of the star of Jurassic Park under the car park, just vibing. So I feel as though it needs to be torn down. And I know exactly where to tear it down, Steve. I know exactly where to tear it down. All right. Royal Academy of London. We have to. We have to. We have to go there.
Nice and near the Thames as well.
Exactly. And have you actually, if you've been to the Royal Academy of London, you can see it. And it's the world's most like, it's a really bad statue. Like whoever sculpted it, they made him look like he was wearing a suede robe. So he looks like a sexy waiter. He looks like he's going to like come see you and make eye contact with you. And it's like, oh, all right, love, you know, eating out is helping out. Ooh, which combines my two least favorite things, lad culture and Tory economic policy.
Oh, I thought your two least favorite things were eating out and helping out. Just from what little I know of you.
I would like to end my time then, please.
Amazing. Round of applause for Alex Lathbridge, please. Alex, you said something in the middle of that I wanted to comment on, but I've forgotten it with my own gutter humour. I've managed to rinse it from my mind. And I suppose that's a fine thing. Oh, yes. Over in the chat thread on YouTube, if we're not going to call it a Tyrannosaurus Rex, I want to know what we're going to call it. I would like to suggest, following Jurassic Park, the Lawyer Eater. I think that'd be a great name for Tyrannosaurus Rex. But if you want to suggest other names for Tyrannosaurus Rex, do so in the YouTube chat thread. That would be super lovely. And we'll go in. You don't get any points for them, much like Ted answering an actual question in the game. You don't get any points for them, but just we'll really enjoy them, unlike Ted answering an actual question in the game.
Okay, let's just calm this down a bit, all right?
Yeah, fine. No, we'll never calm it down. So I'm going to turn to Jones, the scores now, in her lilting, beautiful Welsh voice, to tell us how the two teams are doing. Jones.
For Team Museum, we've got 25 points.
How many pimp points?
25.
Wow. Got pimp points. That's pretty good.
Your Team Wired. 25.
Oh,
Amazing. If Ted had answered the questions, he might actually be doing all right. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Right.
Kate got 5 points, which was what Ted lost for suggesting killing Ted. So
Yes. Yeah. 5 for killing Ted, 12 for Thatcher in the River. Like that is how to rack the points up. Just play into my prejudices. Let's move on. So round 2 is what we call the Great Lists of Science. I'm going to give our teams a title of a list, and they're going to tell me the bullet points that would be on the PowerPoint slides that made up the presentation of this list. Teams, jump in whenever you've got one. Be aware we're on Zoom. Zoom is slow. It's not like a real gig. So give each other a beat before you run through a list of 20 and just, yeah, watch each other. Try not to jump across each other. And so your first list that I want to know from you is this. So I've been doing a lot of talking to scientists while they've all been on lockdown and working from home. They can't go into the lab, but their job is literally to work from the lab. They're all still getting paid, unlike, I think, everyone on this Zoom call. So I want to ask, what have scientists been doing while working from home during the coronavirus lockdown? Off you go.
Working out if Rishi Sunak is fit or we've just ascended to the deepest form of Stockholm syndrome.
Discovering people can now actually mute their unsolicited opinions.
I've collected the semen of 55 men aged around 18 to 25. And what I've found is, oh, no, I'm not a scientist. I was just...
How old are you, Ted?
26.
I wondered why you looked so disappointed about
26, mate. 26.
Keep them coming, teams.
I've left that life behind me.
Point for Ted there, a rarity.
Not sexually harassing anyone in person.
Zoom is great for that sort of thing, though.
Okay, so this is quite embarrassing, but there was a scientist, he went back in time, made a time machine, went back in time, tried to kill baby Hitler, messed up, and now the Nazis have a time machine. Scary stuff.
Keep them coming.
Giving a PhD in public health collectively to the boy band Blue for putting the whole city on lockdown.
I don't get it, but I think it's probably some of our listeners will.
This is a serious thing that some scientists were able to, because of the lockdown, the water has been as quiet as it's ever been. And so scientists studying whale noises were able to get the clearest sound they've ever had of the noise of whales singing. And it actually sounds a lot like this. A wimber whale, a wimber whale, a wimber whale, a wimber whale, in the sea, the splash.
Oh, that's where the mute button is. Right there. Who else has some things?
The lovely sea, the whales swim around. I can unmute myself. They're whales. They're not good at singing.
I'm just finding where the kick button is in case that happens again. Keep them coming, teams. What have scientists been up to whilst working from home?
Well, I really wanted to watch the SpaceX launch, but unfortunately, I'd missed 1 through 9, and I was worried I wouldn't be able to follow the plot, so missed out on that.
Working out if they can get publicity for their niche field by linking it to the pandemic. Nobody cares about particle physics. Nobody.
I call it a gulf. Half wolf, half goose. It's in terrible pain.
Well, being a scientist in lockdown has been really hard. You know, I haven't been able to communicate with any of my dying relatives because I don't have any social skills.
Any more for this one, teams?
I have another song.
No.
Okay.
We're going to get copyright claims right across the YouTube just because you sing them so accurately. They'll be like,
but it's perfect.
Recording.
A lot of whales are going to be claiming copyright on those songs.
Let's move on to our second great list of science. Teams, I want you to put on your future scoping hats. I used to be a professional future scoper for all of 6 months. I didn't see the end of that contract coming. And I want you to tell me what will be the big news stories of the year 2021.
2021, big year for Reiki.
Bullshit detector in number 10 turned into renewable power source.
This week in science news, chimpanzees have learned how to speak and are wearing suits. And that's the conservative politicians, if you ask me. They're more like monkeys than people because they don't know how to. They're not very smart, are they?
I feel bad for Ted because, like, he would have been really funny in about 1986. That's just a point for me. Keep them coming, teams.
Scientists have finally worked out why we didn't see things coming, even though we all had 2020 vision.
I actually went forward in time and I read through a newspaper, which I've got just here. In the future, newspapers are invisible. And they apparently in space news from the year 2021, I will be expanding my professional fortunes. Oh no, this is astrology, not astronomy. Sorry. Never mind. It's not science.
Literally the same thing. Astrology is just applied astronomy We wouldn't have astronomy if it weren't for astrology. Like the Higgs boson people, all they've got to do is find a way that the Large Hadron Collider can predict what mood you'll be in on Wednesday, and they would make shitloads more money. Keep them coming, teams.
So a new study has found that owning a dog will definitely make you feel less lonely. This was, of course, sponsored by the Who's a Good Boy? Yes, you're a good boy. Yes, you are a good boy Foundation.
Those are things I say to my son, and now I realize I'm treating him like a dog. Yeah, I feed him when he asks, Keep them coming, teams. Any more big science news stories of 2021?
Also, according to this newspaper, apparently Abraham Lincoln is dead, and I think the time machine went the wrong way.
Ted Hill completely meritocratically becomes head of Science Museum.
A science museum.
A science museum that we cannot name.
Who knows which one?
Yeah, could be any of the big ones. Any more for this one?
All science museums rebrand as BP museums.
Yeah.
I have nothing to say on that.
I mean, that's the news from about 2004. 2
I
points for Hannah for bringing it up. I wish I'd put more shut up Ted noises on this little box thing I've got. I've got this if I need it. Any more for this one, teams, or shall I move on to the next one?
I just want to say that I think the Science Museum does a great job of inspiring.
Let's move on, teams. The third great list of science is things you did not expect to hear at a government COVID press conference.
Any real understanding of what's going on?
Ayo.
We've got a former Prime Minister here to answer the question, can humans catch COVID from pigs?
Hello, I am Alexander Armstrong. This is my pointless friend Richard. We gave 100 people 100 cases of coronavirus. Who will survive?
There's at least one funding body listening to that and thinking, I don't think that's ethically problematic.
Today, the government announces a tax break for the virus because the virus has, of course, been working very hard over lockdown.
It's working harder than me, I'll tell you that. It's working harder in this house than me. Right, any more for this one? What are the things you didn't expect to hear at a government COVID news conference?
Who are
Hannah.
We were so well prepared for COVID's 1 through 18. COVID-19 will be no different.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
The thing that really frightens me is like the week before we went into lockdown, I did a future scoping workshop with people who work in food security. And I said, I want you to predict the news stories from 2021. And one of them started talking about COVID 36, because apparently we were going to get that many new coronaviruses through in a year and a half. It's flipping heck. Anyway, right. Any more things you didn't expect to hear at a government COVID press conference?
I, as the Prime Minister, would like to add that a quote from Jurassic Park, where I believe that they said we were so busy thinking about whether or not we could that we didn't think about whether or not we should. And long story short, I had a child with the virus.
What's the child with the virus called, Prime Minister? First question.
That information is confidential. Any questions about my children will be turned away. His name's Corey.
Brilliant, thank you. Any more for this one? Things you didn't expect to hear at government's COVID press conference?
Number 10 is pleased to let you all know that at least Boris Johnson getting COVID-19 does prove that he is indeed a human being.
Just checking out the YouTube chat thread, you've all just been beaten by one in the YouTube chat thread, which says, when the Prime Minister said we should all stay positive, he didn't mean for COVID. Thank you, David Gray. It's nice to see David Gray tuning in. It's that David Gray, yeah. Probably.
Hello, it's me, Boris Johnson. It's not one of those things they put outside car dealerships with a microphone in it. I'm here and I'm ready to answer questions. I'm not afraid. It's definitely Boris Johnson.
Keep them coming, teams.
while we haven't been able to keep the virus at bay, installing a scarecrow as Prime Minister at number 10 has, in fact, kept the number of crows at bay. So now, everyone, I can say I was an effective Prime Minister because I have managed to at least keep the number of crows down, not down to 0, but at least lower than the number of coronavirus cases.
I mean, putting a scarecrow in number 10 would at least reduce the pressure on NHS maternity units. Brilliant. Right, teams. Anyone got one more for this one? One more for this one. If you haven't got a golden one out yet, now is your time.
You know, I think for this, Chris, I'd like to phone a friend.
Amazing. Right, can I have a big round of applause for all of our teams? Even though you're only applauding in your house. Ted's applauding a bottle of wine. Well done, Ted. And I'm going to fill for a second because I can see that Jones the Scores is doing some complicated maths. She's actually doing bilingual maths. She has to translate the numbers from Welsh in her head to English on the paper, back to Welsh in her head. So, Jones, can you tell us how are our teams doing?
Would help if I was unmuted.
Yeah, that would be a lovely part of the experience for our listeners, I think.
Team Wyoday has got 44 points.
Oh, what's that in Welsh?
Pedwar deg pedwar.
Whoa, yes. That's a good description of them, I think.
Whilst the Team Museum has got pimp deg pimp.
Whoa!
Yeah!
See what happens if Ted actually takes part.
Suck
What
it.
a wonderful, wonderful change. Right, teams, we're going to move on to round 3. And round 3, the question I have for you is, what one bit of science do you love to bring up on a first date and why? And this time I'm going to start with the man standing in front of a picture of himself. It's Alex Lathbridge. Alex, what bit of science do you love to bring up on first dates?
Okay, so butt plugs, smart butt plugs use the same technology as Fitbits. Exactly the same technology. Right, so basically, what turns out that like quite a lot of patents for smart sex toys are held by big companies who are not willing to let them out. So a lot of technology, or the Bluetooth technology, is the same. So what it means is that you can like hack them really easily, like so very easily that like in 2018, all the companies that made butt plugs turned this bug into a feature, and they held the world's first teledildonic orgy. It had 350 participants, which I think is a great use for technology. And also the fact that they are really missing a trick, because if I had a smart butt plug, what I would really want is a way to look at my heart rate at the same time. So they should just combine the two. That's what I think should happen.
Amazing, excellent answer. Can I have a big round of applause for Alex Lathbridge, please? I mean, I'm slightly scared of both elements of the story. I used to wear a Fitbit, and the day I decided to stop wearing a Fitbit was when I was having a wee at the urinal in the Star of King's pub, where we've held many gigs. And as I was having a wee, my Fitbit went off to tell me I'd done 10,000 steps. Like, I hadn't taken any steps. This was a long wee. It happened in the middle of the wee. And then I stood there looking down, shouting, "What the fuck have you been counting this whole time?" And all the other men in the toilet looked at me like I was a mad person.
Steve,
So I don't
where on your body do you keep your Fitbit?
It was on my wrist.
On your wrist, okay.
That's what I don't understand. The other thing is, lots of you know I've got baby children. My daughter, when they have a bath, we pull the plug out. And what she starts doing, if she doesn't want the bath to end, is she just goes and sits in the plug hole. And she was sitting there, and I said to my partner, "Is that what a butt plug is?" But apparently not. Using your bum as a plug is not a butt plug. It's an entirely different thing. I'm a very innocent man, you know.
Can I try and earn extra points?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to add this to my science communication credentials, because
You're going to hold up a telly butt plug now.
Yeah,
I'll give you 5 points.
Bang. I want
Your
you to know,
singing background is cutting it out. We can't
I want
see it.
I want you to know, yeah.
Hoisted by your own
There's his
face.
5 points.
I-
Right, let's move over, and I'm going to take one from the other team. So I'm going to go with Ted first, because I'm assuming Kate's answer will be better, so I want to save it for the end. And Ted, what one bit of science do you love to bring up on first dates, and why?
Well, I am, unlike the other team, I'm not a scientist. So I don't really know a lot of science. So
Just a point for self-awareness there.
Yeah, so what I'm a science communicator, and I go into
Point
all of
off
my
there.
all of my situations in life as a science communicator, I do it with a lot of energy. I do it with a big old smile, even when things are sad. So at the start of the day, I will go full science communicator. If they're not paying enough attention, I will set something on fire to get their attention. And then maybe I'll blow something up. And if that doesn't work, when the bill comes and it's like money and there's all the numbers, I'll be like, whoa, that's a big number. Let's break that down into its constituent parts so we can understand a little bit more about exactly what's going on here. And if maybe we need a bit of help, if I could get some people from other tables that are different ages, races, and genders, if you guys could all come on down, if you could all just have a look. Yeah, you got not a judge again to do anything. Go back to your tables. Basically, you're going to have to pay. You have to pay for everything. And whoa, scared of commitment. Commitment, that's a big word. Basically, what I'm scared of is I'm scared of not being able to do whatever I want. And we've had a lovely date. So let's just recap everything that we've gone through so far on this day. Essentially, I've been very charming. You've had a great time. And we've learned a lot about thermal conduction. And yes, I am single. I am.
I mean, can we have a big round of applause for Ted? And any of you who are looking at Ted and thinking, yeah, my standards have fallen that far, feel free to go and get yourself some Ted. He's at the Ted Hill.
My phone number is 07701.
Yes. And I thought that was lovely. There's an extra point for Ted. That was a pity point, as they're technically. That was good. I thought I liked. So one of the things you can tell there is that Ted works for a Museum of Science because he was very keen to get a variety of different volunteers. Whereas, of course, if he'd worked on the Royal Institution Christmas lectures, it would have just been 6 identical white 11-year-olds called Olivia and Timothy.
Wow. Inspiring the futures of the next generation is something that's very passionate to both me and everyone around me.
And British Petroleum, presumably.
No comment.
Yes. Right, let's go back to the future winning team. Why aren't you a doctor yet? Hana Ayoob. Can I have a big round of applause for Hana telling us about the bits of science that she loves to bring up on first dates? Hana Ayoob.
So on a first date, I like to talk about honey badgers. And the reason for this is that they are absolute badasses. They will eat pretty much anything. They will break into beehives. They have a bite that can bite through a tortoise shell. They're not actually immune to bee stings, but they just don't really give a shit. And they also build up tolerance to like scorpion venom. They're generally awesome, right? And the reason why I like to bring up honey badgers is because I'm often told that I'm like intimidating or a bit too much. So I feel like bringing up an animal that like literally when confronted by a predator will stand its hair on end, scream and rush towards something that's 10 times its size. It's a really good gauge of like someone's reaction to what too much.
So your position is basically, listen, I know you're scared of me, but let me tell you about something worse. I have to say, Hana, you might be intimidating, but I know a woman who's so intimidating on first dates that she went on one with a friend of a friend. And the thing we got back from the man who'd been on the date with her was just this phrase: "What the fucking hell just happened?" I won't say who that is in case they're watching, because they book some very prestigious events that might pay me lots of money. So I've got to be very nice to them. A big round of applause for Hana. She's probably had one. She can have another one because that was a great answer. I like the idea. I think it's a...
Can I just super quickly? I just want to say that Alex Lathbridge just called me during. I didn't hear a lot of that because he called me, and I thought it was a nice woman calling me, and then I picked it up, and it was Alex Lathbridge.
He's checking you're okay.
Don't put your number out on the internet.
Yeah.
077.
You think it's this desperate and this? I'm actually just going to say my mobile number. Like, they could email you. You're not that hard to find. You're on Twitch every Sunday with your quiz, Ted's quiz.
8 p.m. Ted Sunday quiz. It's very fun.
Right. So let's hear from the better version of Ted. Now, Kate. So the thing I want to know from you is which bits of science do you like to bring up on first dates and why? Can we have a big round of applause for Kate Hunt, please?
Well, one thing that I am 100% sure on after almost 10 years of working in science communication is that astronauts are really, really, boring. Like really, really, really boring. They could not get any more dull. In fact, I'm working on a theory. I reckon that the actual reason they built the ISS was to just be able to rotate through the most boring people on Earth, send them up, give us all a bit of a breakdown here. Buzz Aldrin, more like Buzz Kildren. Seriously, how dull do you have to be that they spent $25 million just to get you off the planet for a few days? But what I'm really interested in is like, what actually is their job? Because essentially they're kind of glorified bus drivers. We make them national, if not international heroes, and that's basically all that they are doing. And if there's anything this pandemic has proved to us is that actual heroes are bus drivers. So what I'm suggesting is that we take all the money that we've been sending into space programming and we just give it to bus drivers instead, who are the real heroes here.
Fantastic. Big round of applause for Kate, please. I know that was a wonderful, wonderful answer. And another thing to note, astronauts tend to be very short. It's just a thing I want to bring up. Having met a couple tiny, I've only met man ones, and they were very tiny, tiny men. I think it's cheaper to send them up. So they're part bus driver, part jockey, if anything, the astronauts. So we've got one more bonus round after this. We've got time for it. And I'm excited because it was the one that as I wrote it, I did spill my own beer because I was so excited with what I was writing. And but first, before we do that, we're going to move all the way to the Principality of Wales. And we're going to move to the Welsh Assembly. And we're going to ask Jones, what are the scores?
We've got Team YD on Saifdig.
Oh, that's a healthy number of points. Healthy. 70.
But
More than 69.
BP's allied interests are still winning on 82.
Ooh,
Yeah!
Kate is really good at this.
Reimagining energy for people and our planet. We want to help the world reach net zero and improve people's lives.
I so want to take points off Ted, but I'd be taking them off Kate as well, and
Yeah.
that feels bad. Right, let's move on to the bonus round,
She's
friends.
greenwashing me.
Friends, I've asked you to do a scientific analysis for our final round, and the final round is this. Who would win in the fight that I have allocated to you? I'm asking you to do full scientific analysis, and we are going to take Ted first.
Okay.
Ted, who would win in a fight between 12 duck-sized horses and 1 horse-sized duck?
First of all, I want to consider if we should try and maybe take the fight to whichever horrible scientist has decided to create these foul beings. But if we're gonna insist on putting them against each other, I will be the first one to buy a ticket. But I think that such a fight will ultimately not be very exciting, because if we apply the principle of allometric and isometric scaling, if we were to take a duck and we were to grow it to be the size of a horse, I'm assuming you're just going to increase it in its size. But the thing is, if you just increase it in its size, its ankles are going to buckle under the weight of that animal. As terrifying as a horse-sized duck would be, I'm pretty sure its ankles would just buckle, and so it would be a very scary thing, just lying on the floor in incredible pain with shattered tibia, unable to move, as these duck-sized horses feast upon its very corpse. So conclusively, the only person that wins is the great British public, because it'll be a great spectacle.
I mean, I like that, but I stopped giving you points because you gave me a flashback to first year lectures in biology about the whole scaling and you chuck a mouse down.
Well, Steve, do you want me to look up the science, or do you want me to not look up the science? You've got to make up pardon my French, your fucking mind.
I just want you to take the time to write some good answers, Ted, you know? I mean, I don't want to be like, I'm writing you all a report card after this, but I have been emailing your parents because they've been wanting to know how things are going. And Ted, I mean, they're worried about you. They're really worried about you.
They should be worried about them. They're divorced.
They want to know when you're going to settle down, when you're going to bring someone home.
I'm trying.
When if any of you have gone lockdown crazy and you're thinking, I need to form a social bubble. If you want to be trapped inside a space hopper with a man in a purple t-shirt.
I'm pretty sure Alex has just called me again.
It's just Alex calling you again, mate.
You're terrible.
Why is he getting abused? Take points off them for abusing me.
No.
Okay.
Because it means I don't have to do it for a few seconds. Let's move on now. I want to hear. So Ted didn't stretch to imagining any sort of way that he could make the fight fair and interesting. And I'm hoping our next speaker does. So Hannah, I'm going to ask you to tell me on a scientific basis, who would win in a following fight? A fight between a bear and a shark. And can I have a round of applause for Hannah Ayoob, please?
So the biggest question with this one is, where is the fight taking place?
Yes,
because like if it's on land, then obviously the bear's going to win because the shark like has, you know, suffocated. And if it's in the deep, then the shark's going to win because the bear has suffocated. But if it's in the shallows, that's when it gets really interesting because it's
Listen, Ted, listen to this.
It starts to depend on the species of the shark and the species of the bear because there are loads of both of them. So, you know, if for example, a great white or a hammerhead is going to go for like one of the smaller bears, like a sun bear or a sloth bear, then I think it's just going to be a bear massacre, right? The teddy bear is just going to be like ripped to shreds. But if it's like a dwarf lantern shark, which is smaller than your hand, I think a panda could just sit on it and then, you know, the sharks are goner. But say like if it's your classic scary specimens, right? The ones that we see in like horror movies and things. So you've got like a polar bear or a grizzly versus a hammerhead or a great white. Well, my bet is definitely on the bears. Like sharks are pathetic. They have teeth, but like nothing else and loads of weak spots and eyes that you can like poke out. Whereas like bears are awesome. Like they practically move like humans. They've got limbs and claws and the teeth. And so I think the sharks are going down.
Amazing round of applause for Hannah Ayoob, please. That's how you do it again, Ted. You see, you imagine the
I
situation.
just want to add that people in this country are
makes it
tired of
entertaining.
experts with letters after their names telling them what they can and
I
can't
have
do.
no letters after my name.
Well, maybe there's a reason why.
What have you got? MA, BSc. What?
I've got an MA.
Well, I know, but I'm asking Hannah.
I have an MA
There we go. You see.
and a BA.
Woo!
Mine
No,
is an
no SC anywhere.
Mine's an MA
She's a
Cantab,
Bama.
so it's not a real one.
Right. Okay. You just had dinner for yours, Ted. Now.
It was a lovely dinner.
Let's shut Ted up for a second and we'll go over and we'll talk to... What have I got now? Alex? No, not Alex. It's Kate. Kate. So, Kate, I wanted you to use a scientific analysis to tell me who would win in a fight between you and Ted. Can I have a big round of applause for Kate, please?
Fortunately, this has come towards the end of the evening, and I think this point will be proved quite well. Probably the easiest way to beat Ted in a fight is just leave him to his own devices. He'll take care of it all on his own. Maybe, again, we could build this statue, and then we'd have to deal with that anyway. But I did think, let's
anymore.
try and apply some science to this. So I thought, oh, well, you know, women live longer than men, so I'll just wait it out. That's probably the best way to start with this.
Because you're an old woman. You're an elderly woman.
Ted, you're not exactly living the super healthy lifestyle that will allow you to live to your 90s. Kate, keep going.
Girls also have been proved to have better taste than men, so I could think about poisoning him, or again, just leave him there to sort it out on his own. But finally, I figured, you know what, if all of these fail, we'll go in for the classic girl move, just kick him in the balls and run, which in Ted's case, they'll probably be pretty hard to find. Am I right, everybody?
Violation. What?
My doctor's actually said I have abnormally large testes.
Right, a round of applause for Kate, please. I thoroughly enjoyed that one, as I'm sure you could tell from the high number of points given out. There's an extra point in case I didn't put enough on there. Now, final answer of the entire game, we're going to go to Dr. Alex Lathbridge, the most doctory of all the Lathbridges other than his dad and all the other ones. And Alex, I've asked you to tell me, using science, who would win in a fight between Drake and Sir Francis Drake? Can I get a round of applause for Alex Lathbridge, please?
Okay. So much like Hannah, this requires putting into context. Are we saying it's right now, or are we saying it's the 16th century? Now, I'm going with right now. That would make sense because we've transported Francis Drake to the future, not back in time. That would be weird. So right now, we've got Drake. Now, Drake, rapper, actor, lover of British culture, right? it's not going to be super easy, right? Because he isn't soft. He looks soft, but he isn't soft. He's 6 foot and he's had abs put in, all right? He does, he has. He went to Dominican Republic. He had abs. People know this. People know this. It's the truth. Don't clap. It's the truth. I'm just saying the truth.
No, just more points for this deep Drake knowledge.
All right, cool. But he's not a pirate from the 16th century, nor has he ever had a £6 million bounty on his head. Now, fair. Unlike Sir Francis Drake, Drake won't die of dysentery. All right, he's got modern medicine. That's not going to happen. Francis Drake, on the other hand, died at 56, got dumped in the sea. That's bullshit. But Drake he's soft enough that he wouldn't resort to chemical warfare. So physicality-wise, it's evenly matched. Chemical warfare, so where it comes down to it is psychological, and psychological is where Sir Francis Drake wins it. Okay, so for the maybe 20% of people on the chat who know this, a couple of years ago, Drake was famously destroyed by rapper Pusha T in a back and forth, right, where Pusha T used insiders in Drake's camp to find out that he had a secret baby that he tucked away in Canada, yeah? Cool. So one 3-minute song bullied Drake into being a proper dad. Like, he's held the L for that for the last 2 years. That's longer than he's held his child, all right? So what I'm saying is, if that's his weakness, family is his weakness, who better to find a black child in a foreign country than a 16th century British sailor?
Amazing. Round of applause for Alex Lathbridge, please. Sarah, can you take 3 points off Alex for referring to somebody with one baby as a proper dad?
Fuck!
Because that's what we in the twin baby industry know as a fucking lazy bastard.
Exactly. No, exactly. You are totally correct. Right?
Yeah, he didn't go and acknowledge the child because he was embarrassed that he's not fecund enough to produce twins.
Yes.
By taking the points off, though, you have made the points even.
Yeah. I count all these in my head.
Fuck.
You can't know that. I don't count them in my head. I love when stuff like this happens. So Sarah's ruined the end there. But now we're going to find out exactly what number of points our teams are even on. This is good. I've set up this Premier League table. It's going to be really boring on day one. Right, it's taken one game to not divide the two teams who played. Well, we'll be back next week. I should say, before we reveal the final equal scores, we'll be back next week with 2 more teams. Who have I got next week? I have got a team from the podcast Disgusting Planet, and they will be taking a team of COVID heroes on, actual NHS staff going up against people who love gross, disgusting things. That's next week's game. You can find it on scienceshowoff.org or wherever you bought this ticket. And I'm just going to go to Sarah Jones now, who's ruined the main tension and drama of her own job to find out the final scores. Alex, is that your second cup of tea in a different mug during the game?
Yeah, no.
No, that's phenomenal. Is someone bringing you these, or did you stack them up before the show?
I stacked them up because I knew that this was a high-octane event and knew that you
That's a
needed
point
to
for
get...
Fucking
Fucking yes,
no!
Get in!
Right, now, Sarah Jones, if you'd like to reveal the final scores...
Fuck this whole tournament!
What are the final scores now, Sarah?
I can't tell you this in Welsh because we have no need for our numbers to go this high.
Of course.
But Team Museum are on 130.
113, that's a good score.
Oh, fuck
whereas an incredible victory from Why Aren't You a Doctor Yet with 114 points.
That's a huge win. Huge win. Incredible work by Why Aren't You a Doctor. Ted has rage quit the stream. Another point for Why Aren't You a Doctor Yet for making Ted rage quit the stream. Because he's now got to go back through the waiting room if he wants to come back in. It's up to me if I let him in. He's sitting there now. It says remove, admit.
What I'd also say is I gave a point to Steve on the Vorder board. So if you want to award your own point to someone, Steve.
No, that's my point. I'm keeping that. I'm going to spend it. I'll let Ted back in. That was a beautiful, beautiful game, teams. So now I'm just going to do a couple of post-game interviews with the teams. Team We've worked for a museum where there's some science. How does it feel to have lost by 1 point?
I'd like to take a moment to just do a call out to anyone. I'd like a new teammate.
Yeah.
So I'm not as dangerous as Ted, and I'm not going to put my phone number out
if it
there.
wasn't for
But
me.
if you call
You could
Ted's
form
number,
Team Australia. That would be good. You could get an Australian and be Team
We
Australia.
all know who that would be, and she doesn't want that to happen.
Or the Prime Minister of Australia.
Kevin Rudd himself.
So that was lovely, emotional. So let's turn to the winners now. They're standing in front of the boards with the names of all of our sponsors on. We're going to ask them about the strategy that brought them this great win. Team, how does it feel to have won? And what do you pay credit to in terms of your own preparation, tactics and strategy tonight?
I mean, I have to leave it to the captain there. I mean, really, honestly, good game plan, good vision, very high, never explain IQ there. Really just saw it, took every option, every angle. That was a finisher. That was
It's
it.
like Hana sees the whole pitch.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of you just see the next move. Hana sees the whole pitch. Hana, what's your secret?
I think preparation seems to be the key to preparation.
Yes, actually having written some answers is a tremendous way to play a game that is about writing answers beforehand. Wonderful. Yep. Jones, do you have any final words for everybody out there in the world? Anything you'd like to advertise since you've been doing all this maths?
I'd say just why not count things in your day-to-day life? Have a little count.
Just points for Sarah now for that wonderful comment. Brilliant. Can I have a final round of applause from everybody out there for our wonderful, wonderful teams? Do come and see us next week for our Disgusting Planet versus the actual National Health Service. I've been Steve Cross. This has been Never Explained. Go from this place and lead brilliant and successful lives all. Good night.